Okay, everybody, so this is my spoiler review of Severance, episode 3, in Perpetuity. This was again directed by Ben Stiller, like the first two episodes, but it's not written by the showrunner Eric Dickerson. This time it's written by Andrew Colville, so there's so much to unpack in this crazy episode. They're throwing a lot at you. It demands a rewatch to catch little things, little hints about what's actually really going on. The first couple things I've caught is that when Petey asks Mark about anyone living nearby, he mentions about this character we know as Peggy is the neighbor, right? But he mentions that they're really didn't fill up the neighborhood that much. So this can get theories going because we get a lot of shots of the neighborhood. We get to see more of it where Mark lives and how literally all the houses look the same. They're all blue. Everything around them is blue. But it's interesting because it's definitely set up by Lumon, right? Like that we have this watchful eye maybe for Lumon employees that he probably wouldn't recognize from different departments living in that same neighborhood. We're going to get into Peggy in a second because we get a lot of reveals already and answers about her character in this episode. But I really love this standout editing, especially in the scenes when Mark is talking to Petey and we see Petey is now dipping out of his worky Petey and outy Petey in his head. I love how it blends both environments visually so well, where he'll have the outfit on from his Audi while he's in his worky environment in the office or vice versa. And it really is cool because it's explaining things that he's remembering that actually did happen in the office and how it's connecting to present day. So Petey, while he's talking to Mark about everything, he's talking about his reintegration and these people, this group that doesn't believe in severance, and that these people who reintegrated him aren't the protesters that Mark met. It's a different group. And he also brings up to Mark, how would you feel if you knew that you were murdering people 8 hours a day? Which is a crazy line. And he says he found a department they don't tell us about where you don't get to leave, like they're down there right now. So this is going to get, Reddit going crazy. Everyone's theories going crazy. Like, what is going on in this Lumon building? But they justify him not giving Mark all the answers here because of him going in and out of these visions, these episodes he's having, these side effects of the severing and the reintegration. He's just all messed up here. So right away, this episode gives us the answer that Peggy is not severed and that this is the Peggy we see at work and that she is the neighbor and she's fully aware of it and she's got a watchful eye on Mark. And we learn even more about Peggy, which is crazy, which we're going to get to about another name of hers, Harmony, who I really think is a real name. But there's some great shots here and creepy stuff going on where Peggy's just watching Mark at night and she's like, oh, you poor thing. But I love that they show him walk between two windows. Again, like with the two fish in the apartment, it's showing these two lives, two versions of Mark he's walking through that she is monitoring, literally and metaphorically. And she's chewing one of those cookies she gave him, so get theories about those cookies going, because we're going to see Irving, which I'll point out each time, referring to Mark looking like he's had food poisoning, so who knows what's even really in those cookies Peggy is giving Mark. And another crazy thing is we see this news segment Mark's watching, and it's the Lumon representative, and I'm guessing HR person, Natalie, who we see later in the episode, who is the communication between the board and Peggy. And she's offended by the word worky and insy. And the person who she offended by saying this, I'm guessing, is a man who is from this group that reintegrated Petey. And we see the headline is saying that 4 states proposed to anti-severance legislation. So this is, again, a really big topic in the world at this point. And I love some writing here, in particular when Petey says to Mark the next morning, at work you would come in with red eyes. You carry the hurt with you. You feel it down there too. You just don't know what it is. This is great, and this just sums up also why Adam Scott's performance has been brilliant. I said in my previous review, he does such a good job, especially in his work version of showing a man who's forgotten things, but that he's dying inside. It's visually on his face. There's something very sad in between all this, despite having this surgery. And I love, too, with the editing and the directing by Ben Stiller, decisions he makes, everything's so thought out and really tight and well done. And I love that right when Mark goes on this elevator, and we're hearing a lot of dramatic music to this point, the second the elevator doors shut and he's going to work, the music cuts. I love that. So back to what I was saying about the food poisoning theories, right? Irving's just throwing these quick lines like, you look trim, Mark. I wonder if you were food poisoned. And later on, when Irving sees Mark after he talks to Helly, he says, I'm worried stress you're having is too fast to be having after having food poisoning. So they're reiterating this line by Irving, so it has to mean something. And adding to mystery of the show, one of my favorite mysteries going on is about Helly, because we see Mark is giving his first time these morning announcements. And the big one is that Helly's resignation request has been denied, and he's never seen such a quick turnaround of being denied. So she says, that can't be right. My Audi wouldn't do that. But we don't know a lot about Helly's Audi, and it's a fascinating mystery. Like, why is she so hell-bent on having herself go to this company? What is this Helly? What happened to her in the real world? So a lot of the humor of the show comes through the brother-in-law and his books he's writing, and I love that he drops it off at that Mark's house, and Peggy goes and grabs it. She has to grab it because she's got to check for any notes there, but it's just funny when she gives it to Milchick later on. She's saying it's his 5th book, and he's reading a line about being emotionally nude to your wife. I thought that is just so funny. But what's fascinating about that little scene there was how quickly he throws the book down when Mark walks in the room, just to keep face, and that Mark wouldn't even notice that at the office. But it's going to be interesting, too, to see where this comes back later on, that when Mark sees his sister and his brother-in-law again, they're going to be like, what'd you think of the book? And he's going to be like, I didn't get a book. So that has to come back. And you also see little details, like Peggy has a key to the house. It's a Lumon key. So going back to that theory about how this whole environment is probably owned by Lumon. And very cool, again, with his editing, with Petey having these visions of when he was in the office, and it's coming between him and the real world, but he's drawing a sketch in the basement here of the building of Lumon, but it brilliantly shows us through the visuals of him when he was at the office talking to Mark that he was drawing these sketches in the office, that his reintegration was happening in the office. It was already started there, and that's mentioned later on by Peggy as well, but it also is a good tease to the reveal later on that this sketch he was doing at his desk was in the frame that Mark will find at the end of the episode. I also want to know your theories. I mean, this is totally out there, was when Peggy is in Mark's basement and just takes a candle out of his dead wife's crafts box and she keeps it. So what was that about? I could not figure that out for the life of me. What was also interesting was when Petey was walking on this bridge in present day and he's following these notes he was scribbling. It's showing you he was also following these notes at one point in the building itself of Lumon, trying to kind of investigate this building and what's going on, and probably when he found out a lot of crazy information. So a lot of commentary, like I had mentioned in the first review, about just corporate life, office life we live in today, is really leaned into in this episode, and the satire of it we'll see a lot of too, and that comes a lot through Dylan's character, and it also comes through just scenes of how Mark and Helly interact, and the moments like when Helly's in the bathroom trying to find a way to escape and write notes on her arm, he's bringing up she should be proud of like the amazing thing she did with the numbers the day before, and it's like those moments we felt in the office of wanting to quit, and someone that's always there kind of like reminding you like how, you know, you're doing good though, don't leave. And it's like interesting too, the commentary and how they set up these 4 characters of Irving, Dylan, Mark, and Helly, because it's like I said, Helly's the audience's lens, right? We're going through her of like learning everything, and then Mark is someone who's kind of showing us the themes of the show. We know the most about him outside of work, and we're relating to him emotionally. But then you got Dylan here, who is kind of just that guy we all know in the office, who's really the voice of reason and truth here, and like pointing out all the messed up things office culture does, where Irving's the complete opposite, where he's the believer of it, and he is admiring this company and wants to work his way up. It's really well done how they kind of plan that out with the 4 characters. And you even see Irving saying that, you know, Dylan's bringing up incentives of the company and waffle parties, and he's like, that's not what this is about. You know, this is deeper than that, this company. That's not why we are here, he says. And that's where he gets the idea of its deeper meaning that Helly needs to see and craves. Let's take her to the Perpetuity wing. And like I was saying, how this episode leans into that commentary on corporate culture and how messed up it could be. They do a great job about showing it, especially about office communication between different levels of power. And you see that when Mark wants to talk to Peggy just for a moment here, you know, they mention again that he has to fill out a request to speak to his supervisor. She's like, no, he can talk to me. So again, this is great. They showed this little moment with Mark and Peggy, because Peggy, on the other end, has to do this too with the board when she talks to them, how cold it is, and she can't even directly talk to them. She has to talk to them through a representative for them, the HR woman, Natalie, which we're going to get into that scene. But you see Peggy throws this mug at Mark and says, what I just did was something I knew you could handle and grow from. It was very painful for me. I hope that you will let it help you. I mean, haven't we all had abusive bosses like this that maybe not that extreme, or maybe that extreme, but either way, just behavior that's abusive and they justify it that way. They say they feel bad, but it's to help you, you know? And Patricia Arquette is the best actress to deliver lines like this so effortlessly. And it's just corporate abuse and brainwash. And you see it's coming down from her, also, in a sense, being abused by a board. And talking about that scene, which was one of my favorite scenes, with this big reveal that it's Natalie from the TV we saw, but the bigger reveal is she calls Peggy Harmony. So that's got to be her real name, and that Peggy is another just fake name on top of fake names that this character has. And she thinks the board's going to want to know what's going on with Helly, but no. What they care about is Petey, because Petey's the threat to something bad happening for this company. And she mentions, like I said, the prior departure, troubling signs of reintegration was shown through Petey. And Natalie's like on the phone with the board, is like, board is saying pretty strongly that the severance procedure is provenly irreversible, which we know is not true. It's maybe that it's not fully irreversible, which is true. But I mean, that what we've seen so far, what's happening with Petey, but there is ways to adjust it. And they say that the manager of the severed department should know these things. And when she answers and gives her reasoning and what her plan is, they already hung up on her, which was just so true to real world life here about how this corporate chain treats each other and how supervisors just goes on and on, whoever's under them. This is very accurate, and that you can't even have a one-on-one conversation. And you see the satire really leaning in when they're seeing the O&D department, optics and design, and we see Britt again with this other woman, and they're talking about this training they had with these eggs, the egg drop challenge. And you see the different reactions where Dylan's calling BS on it and hates this guy, Britt, and doesn't trust him. But Irving looks up to Britt. You know, this is what he likes. And it's a lot of lines here you got to pay attention to that are super important. In particular, that stood out to me, too, is Dylan just saying how, like, they're the cruelty department here. No other department is. That was fascinating. That makes you wonder about the O&D department and that they had this coup that happened years ago. And it makes it that much more scarier that if this violent coup is true, that Irving admires Britt in this department. And going to that observation, again, of office commentary and how we are brainwashed by admiring these great CEOs and great values of a company, and that they were shown that through them looking through this perpetuity wing. And I'm sure when you're watching this and looking at this wax figure of the current CEO, you're thinking of Westworld right away. I know that's where my head went. This is where the show most felt like Westworld in all the good ways. And if you like this, obviously you should watch at least Westworld Season 1, which is brilliant. I'm not going to talk about Season 2 and 3, but watch that season. But it's so similar, you know, and having this corrupt company, corrupt CEO, but that exciting mystery about what is the vision totally here. How did this start? Where did this begin? Where are we? It's so fascinating. And then we see this room of the former CEOs, but really the most significant one being Keir Egan. And he's audio here talking about taming of these four tempers. It's like these flaws in the human mind and adjusting it in the mind. And, you know, people are going to observe that bingo card shot we got of Helly holding it, and you see things like, you know, Lumon's referred to as she. Unexplained Egan death, so it's got to be a side effect of some kind of surgery they were doing, maybe severing. And Egan depicted with Halo, this says everything here, too, that, you know, he's really looked at as the god of this company, this Keir Egan. I mean, they literally made a replica house of where he lived. But what's important is Irving talking about not having a history, that history gives us shape. And waking up on that table, I was shapeless, because you're deleting your history, right? And you see the quote when you enter here, history lives in us whether we learn it or not. And then we see that Irving says, but then I learned I work for a company that is actively working for mankind since 1866. So it's almost shaping your own human history to the company's history, to their view on the world and what they want you to do for them. And it's kind of like a commentary on the show. It's like these people don't bring their human touch to it, their own story. They're put into the story of the company that they made for them. And it makes us robots, in a sense. And I love the humorous line here, but it also means a lot, too, when they see the replica house and Helly's like, Jesus. And Irving just says, no, Keir. Like, again, just saying to you, like, that's how he's viewed here. And it's interesting, you can't lay on that bed in the house. And Mark, our character Mark, you know, he obeys the rules, but he's always curious, you know, and he wants to lay on that bed. And that's obviously where Irving calls him out. But Helly books it at this moment. We get this intense scene with a lot of handheld camera work that I thought was really effective here, where a lot of times it would make people nauseous and is overdone, but it really works in this sequence of Mark chasing Helly. And that's a serious cut she gets in her arm trying to escape. So they're going to have to give her a gift card like they gave Mark and some kind of story of what happened at work for her outie. But we get more into this creepy break room, right? And we knew from Petey's tape last week that they have this brainwashing going on about everything's your fault, right? And now we see the big reveal part of that is that there's a lie detector in the room with you. So you really have to convince them that you're saying it and you mean it, which was crazy to me and just sick and twisted, but awesome. And props to the actor of Milchick here. He kills it. And I love his line, "I'm afraid you don't mean it." That was where I just got chills down my spine. You got Peggy watching. Just great directing by Ben Stiller as well. Some of the shots he got with Peggy's eyes through the lines she has to read. Everyone here just crushing it. And we're getting all these little answers with more questions. They're doing such a good job of that in a mystery show. A good balance. And we see Mark's replacing the desk photos of the group photo of Petey's with now one with Helly, but he finds on Petey's old one this map. And this is where Petey's bugging out in the gas station. He's trying to put tokens in the machine like they do at Lumon. And it's a nice touch when he's in this gas station. He's surrounded by Lumon products like Lumon Cola. And Mark will see Petey being taken by this ambulance and this freak out and like collapsing, which is bad. One, because he's collapsing. It's got to scare Mark because it's showing you the side effects of severing and of reintegration. And that no way about it, you're not going to end up good health-wise from it. And also, this is bad news for Petey because now his location is going to be found out by Lumon, so I'm sure Petey's not going to make it out of this alive either way. And it's setting up such an interesting storyline because we're just waiting for outie Mark to connect with working Mark and connect the dots together because you're seeing working Mark learn more information. You're seeing outie Mark learn more information, but he's got to transfer it to both Marks. It's really just awesome, fresh stuff and fascinating. I know I sound like such a fanboy for this show, but again, this is my favorite type of show. You know, I am so hooked into this, but it's also really, really good, whether you objectively like this type of genre or not. It's so well done. It's exciting me. And the big cliffhanger here is that Petey left his phone in the basement in his daze, and that Mark found it. So this number calling Mark, I'm going to guess, is this group that reintegrated Petey, or maybe it's someone else. Maybe it's Petey's daughter. Who knows? Maybe it's Lumon. So we'll see, but this might be, more of a way that Mark will find out more about what's going on in Lumon, whoever's on that other end of the phone call. So, really exciting cliffhanger. So well done this episode. I don't know, I can't say anything wrong about it. It was so entertaining. The mystery's awesome. They just added more stuff, giving you already so many answers, especially about Peggy, aka Harmony, and we're getting more mystery added too. I love it. I'm loving all the performances. And Ben Stiller, man, I liked him as a director, but he's blowing me away how good he is now these first 3 episodes. So props to him. I'm excited. The writing's top notch, and it seems like Eric Dickerson as a showrunner has a good vision for this. So I'm really pumped to see where this goes. But I'm giving this one a 9.6. Excellent stuff, and it's only getting better and better for me right now. But let me know what you thought down below. Give me all your theories. I want to hear them. Please subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of Severance. I'll be doing every single episode. And make sure to follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of me. And if you really love what I do here, I appreciate if you become a member today. That will help me do this full time and make more videos for you guys and get special perks as well. And I'll see you next time.